Hey guys, so in this video we will be talking about Sabrina Carpenter's book recommendation. The first one is going to be Evelyn Hugo. Honestly, I didn't really want to read this video, but because it was on her book recommendations, I thought I might as well just read it. And my expectations were so low because this is a really famous book that I thought about reading it, but then I was like, I'm not gonna read it because it's so famous. And a lot of the time books are famous because of the marketing and the hype and not necessarily because of the content. And I was like 10% in and I was like, whoa, this is like a 5-star book. This is such a good book. I love the multiple storylines. What I specifically love about it was that it was kind of like an interview format, and there was also a huge twist in the end, and personally I did not guess it. I did read the Goodreads reviews and a lot of people could actually guess the twist, which I definitely couldn't, which I'm always like really bad at guessing twists anyway, so I don't really have high expectations for that. Fun fact about her is it's actually like a fictional character, which I wasn't sure about, but then I looked it up. I've written a couple of conclusions down. Basically, like, she does have like 7 husbands, obviously, as the title says, and on top of that she actually has a reason for marrying each one of them. Sometimes it's more about just her getting into Hollywood, other times it's about establishing herself. And what I found like most intriguing about it is kind of like the glimpse behind the Hollywood curtain that you get through this book, which I never expected, but it was so interesting how a lot of the things that are happening in Hollywood are so similar to how she did everything. I was hooked all the time, so it's definitely a 5-star review. Okay, so on to the second book, and it's The Defining Decade. Now this is a book that I actually started a couple of years back, but I actually didn't really like it. It was so uncomfortable to get through, so I gave up on it. But because it was on the reading list, I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna pull through and tug it out, and I did read it and I finished it. I definitely think the main reason why it's so uncomfortable is because you feel like a constant pressure on yourself to actually do something in your 20s, and I am in my 20s, but I've always like had an idea and a career idea, and I kind of knew how I was going to be, at least in my early 20s. So for me personally, it just felt like she was putting on so much pressure on getting into the right relationship and just like not wasting your 20s, and I feel like it added to the pressure that I've already felt beforehand. I think it is actually more so a book for somebody who has no idea, no clue, and who thinks that 20s is a trial run and not like actually trying to build a life. For people like me who are very like self-aware and reflective and just like had a plan for the 20s, I feel like this put an immense amount of pressure on myself. So I actually highlighted a lot of things here, and one of the most important things were kind of like the definition of confidence, which is something I've always been super interested in. As far as I know, I think she is like a clinical psychologist, and so she does take a lot of like real life examples of people apparently not taking their 20s seriously, which I never thought that I would encounter, but then again, maybe I just live in my bubble. So one of the things that I highlighted was the importance of goals, which I guess maybe I just had like great teachers and mentors who did like in middle school even talk about how important goals are, because they give you like a direction in life. And I definitely noticed when in university I wasn't like taking care of very much of my life, in the sense that I wouldn't like set goals because my goal was to finish university, but that's like a really like vague goal. So I do think it would have like helped me more if I had very like specifically smart set goals. I also find like her definition of confidence really interesting, mostly because I've always been so like interested in confidence and what does it look like, and I'm like absolutely obsessed with the idea of getting more confident. How do people define it? So basically the way that she defines it is that basically the trust that you have in yourself to complete the given task. That definitely shifted my perspective a little bit. Okay, so the last book that I read was called The Hate You Give, and honestly it is absolutely a 5-star book. I loved it so much. It was definitely a bit like filled with emotions and discrimination and hate crimes against Black people, and I actually found it really difficult to read. It is also a book that I started a couple of years back because it was super famous. I stopped reading it because it was so heavy, but then I saw it on the book list and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna read it and thug it through, and I really liked it. I specifically loved how the author actually changed her writing style depending on whether Star, so like the protagonist, was actually in school versus when she was at home. She also talks about how she feels like she's kind of like in the doorway of two different worlds, where she has to completely change herself, the way that she speaks and also the friendships that she has. So it's basically like she's living in two different worlds, and I loved that because it made so many people feel seen. So fun fact about this book is it spent over 80 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list in regarding to YA books, and this is definitely such a coming of age story because she is like 16 years old, so a teenager, and she does have to go through so much bad things, and so you see her trying to process everything just like any person would. I really loved how it was actually written from the perspective of a teenager, but also like it really did feel like a teenager was talking, and not just like the words that she uses but also the narration of the text and the chapters. I really loved it. So that's it for the video. Thank you for watching.